Hello, hello. Happy marvelous Monday. I hope that you all are well. I'm Karissa Spann. I'm so excited that you are joining me today. I am going to share some information about housing inspections and the truth about it. So, if this is your first time tuning in, let me say thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in today. If you are watching the replay, thank you. Thank you to all of my Facebook family, my YouTube family, my LinkedIn family. If you've been following me for an extended period of time, you know that this is what I do each and every Monday at 7:30. I enjoy bringing information that is relevant for tenants as well as landlords. And so today's discussion is all about housing inspections, the truth about it, the truth about housing inspections. And so if you have questions, if you have comments, this is the time to get it all out. So please make sure that you are participating in the conversation if you are a landlord, if you're a tenant, or if you know someone who is, because I promise you that my only goal today is to provide information that is clear and understandable. And I'm sharing information that is relevant for a lot of rental communities throughout the nation. Listen, there is so much going on. People are they're finding themselves in desperate situations, desperate positions, and housing inspections is a big topic. And today I'm going to share why. So please make sure that you like it, you tag somebody, or you share this information. I promise you that somebody is going to be blessed by what I am sharing today. Is that all right? So again, thank you so much. I obviously, I always love to know where my viewers are tuning in from. And so please let me know, where are you watching from? Where are you right now? What is your geographical location? Are you tuned in the DC metropolitan area? Are you in New York? Are you in South Carolina? Where are you? Check in. Come on, let me know. Let me know that you can hear me. Show me some love in the comment section. Say, hey, girl, hey, I hear you. Want to make sure that my sound is clear. And if something happens, by all means, let me know, because I understand that technology happens, right? It happens to the best of us. And so today, I promise to not hold you long, but I'm going to hold you long enough to share what I'm going to share with you today. Is that all right? So let me do this because usually on the first Monday of the month, I do Q&A. And so I had some questions that came in by way of text. And so maybe next week we'll get into Q&A. So it's usually the first Monday where I spend time answering questions that are landlord and tenant related. And so some text messages just came in. And if you have a question about housing inspections or any other housing matter pertaining to landlord and tenant residential rental property, go ahead and drop that in the comment section today. All right. Okay. So I promise you that as long as we live, right, in the rental community, there are going to be issues, right? So many of you know my background, you know my story. I have been in the industry for well, almost 3 decades. And so I am a little bit seasoned, right? I'm a housing educator, I'm a housing inspector, I'm a whole lot of things when it comes to rental property. And so as long as we live as a housing provider or a tenant, things are going to go wrong. Things are not always going to work out right. Things are not always going to be perfect. A pipe will break, a toilet will leak. Um, Things just happen, right? But I believe that if owners, property managers, and landlords, if they treat their business like a business, it will in fact pay them like a business. And I get it. Some people don't really understand what it takes to manage rental property, whether they own it or they are managing it for somebody else. And I also understand that not all tenants are created equally. Why do you say that, Karissa? I'm glad you asked. Because sometimes renters don't necessarily understand the importance of housekeeping, right? So sometimes things happen because one of two reasons, because a person either doesn't know or perhaps they just don't care. But in any event, when it comes to rental property, housing inspections are important and they should be important for both parties. Here's why. Because for the tenant, when a landlord, property manager inspects the rental property, they should be doing it to make sure that it's decent, safe, and sanitary. But tenants should also inspect rental properties before they move in. And so I'm sharing tips today for both landlords as well as tenants because it is important. I'm going to share some pictures. I'm going to ask that you please brace yourself for what I'm showing you today. All right. And I'm talking about real time scenarios, situations, things that are currently happening at this present day and time. All right. So let me just acknowledge a few people who are here. And then I am going to read some of, I believe, two text messages came in. Hello, Pastor Bellows. Thank you so much for tuning in from Washington, D.C. Hello, Miss Davis. Thank you for tuning in, beautiful. From D.C., you hear me loud and clear. Awesome, awesome. Hello, Lynette. All right, Charlotte, North Carolina is in the building. I see you checking in. My beautiful sis from Charlotte. Please make sure that you follow author Lynette Jewell. She is a phenomenal woman. She's a real estate investor. She's an author. She does a lot in the rental community. And so if you are in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, please connect with my sister and make sure you tell her that I told you to connect with her. All right. So let me just check my text messages that came in. I do want to share the two questions that I received for today. And then I'm going to get into the discussion because usually, like I said, usually the first Monday of the month is reserved for Q&A. So here is a question that came in, and it is from a landlord who is watching in the DC area. I told you to connect with her. All right. So the question is, Karissa, I have a rental property in the DC area. I leased the property up and I did not have an up-to-date lease. I want to change the lease. So how do I go about changing what has already been signed? That's a great question. So this landlord has a rental property and they signed a lease, but at some point they tuned into one of my sessions that I do every week, and they heard me talk about how having a strong lease protects the tenant, it protects the landlord, and it protects all assets. Okay. And so in this situation, unfortunately, if you have recently signed a lease with a tenant, you are bound by the terms of that agreement. Now, you can, however, ask if the tenant would be willing to sign the new lease with the changes that you desire to make. There is no harm in asking. Just have that conversation, have an honest conversation. Listen, mistakes happen. I remember early on when I got into property management, when I started my property management company many, many years ago, there were some things that I didn't include in my rental lease agreement. Um, and so I did go back to the tenant to let them know, listen, we made a mistake, but don't just provide the tenant with a new lease. Go ahead and get the old lease back because you don't want anything that's incorrect floating around. And if the tenant does not consent or is not willing to sign a new lease, then unfortunately you are bound by the terms of that lease. Great question. And so let me get into this to the discussion today because we're talking about the importance of housing inspections. Here's why housing inspections are important. So number one, the housing inspection, it should be conducted before a tenant moves in. All right. And not only should it be conducted before a tenant moves in, it should be done together. So both parties should be there together, seeing the same thing at the same time. Here's why that's super important for tenants. You want to be able to identify issues that are wrong before you move in, because once you move in, if you haven't conducted the housing inspection with your landlord, the landlord could very well say, well, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, but it wasn't like that when you moved in. The garage door worked properly, right? And so if you're both there, you're seeing things at the same time and it's documented, then that covers you. Now, why that's important for owners or landlords? Because you want to identify the condition before a tenant moves in. In the event something happens, you'll have it documented, you'll have pictures. I know that some of my clients and viewers are really great with doing videos. They will video the property before a tenant moves in. That is how you conduct your business like a business. You want to identify issues. Now, sometimes you can do a housing inspection and there may be nothing wrong, right? And a tenant moves in the next day, the toilet um, overflows, the toilet bolt comes out, the toilet becomes a little bit rocky, or all of a sudden something happens in the kitchen, maybe with the sink and the garbage disposal just stop working, or it backs up, or maybe the tub overflows or something, right? So you just want to document those things. What was the condition before the tenant took possession of the rental property? What was it like if you are a tenant before you moved in? Because when you move out, and if those say, okay, let me just back up. So sometimes tenants will move into rental properties because they are eager to move in. Maybe they are coming out of a situation and they desperately need to find a new rental home, right? And so sometimes people will move into rental property, all right, where repairs are needed. I've had tenants to move in and I was able to take care of repairs maybe like the morning of or the day of that they moved in, but with the intent of making sure that all the repairs were completed, because I understand that things happen. Sometimes things are overlooked. And honestly, sometimes people just don't realize, right, the repairs that may need to be done before a tenant moves in. But let's just say, this tenant moves into the rental property today, everything is fine, because sometimes that happens, and that's how it should be. Tenants should always move in a rental property where nothing is wrong. Okay, they should move into a property that is ready to receive them, has no issues, it's been repaired, it's been clean, right? And so let's just say tenant moves in today, everything is perfect, but then like a day or two later, something happens, something comes up, and the tenant should contact the owner, the landlord, the property manager, if you will, to report the issues. Now, it's up to the landlord or the housing provider to either come out to verify the repairs that are needed, or if they can't come out personally, to either send someone, a maintenance person, conduct a virtual inspection. I'll get into that another segment. But there should be some sort of care. There should be some sort of follow up if a tenant is complaining that something is wrong. All right. So any real business owner understands that to protect the asset, you verify the repairs that are needed and you actually conduct it. You complete the repairs. So that's just number one. All right. So that's before a tenant moves into the rental property. Now, once a tenant is living in a rental property, okay, doesn't matter if it's 2 months, 2 years, 2 decades, doesn't matter, right? 2 centuries, because sometimes tenants, they'll move in and they'll stay forever. I love tenants. I can appreciate my tenants who occupy my property and they are in it for the long haul. I appreciate that, right? So let's just say, for instance, Mr. Bellows, I know that you're a landlord. Lynette and Ms. Davis, I know that you're landlords, right? So you have a tenant in your rental property. You should be conducting housing inspections. How often? I want you to put that in the comment section, in the chat box, if you will. How often do you think a landlord should be conducting a housing inspection? So I'm gonna wait because I want to see what your responses are today. I want this to be an interactive communication today. How often do you believe a landlord should conduct a housing inspection? All right, so go ahead and put that in the comment section for me. And then I'm going to read my second question that came in by way of text. All right. So, my second question for today. Okay. So, the question is, hello, Sade, thank you for tuning in. So the second question that came in by way of text today, it's another landlord, and they want to know if the tenant moves in and does not put the water bill in their name, if the landlord could do that. All right. So here's a situation where obviously a landlord rented a single family house, and they made it the responsibility of the tenant to pay the water bill, right? And sometimes it happens. And so the tenant was supposed to turn the water bill on or add their name to the water bill so that they could be responsible for the bill. And so this owner is asking, what can they do? Can they intervene what happens if the tenant doesn't do it. And I see that a lot in a lot of areas. And so here's how I handle situations when it comes to utilities. So if the tenant is responsible for paying the water bill, the electric bill, the gas bill, the oil bill, right? In my rental lease agreement, I'm going to name the utility companies. So if it's BG&E, if it's Pepco, if it's the gas company, if it's the water and sewer company, right? I'm going to put that information in the lease. I'm going to also put the contact number for them to contact the utility company. And then I'm also going to have them to sign an addendum saying that within 5 days of moving in, they are going to put the utilities in their name, or the service will be either turned off, right? But in many cases, you can't turn that water off. And so, if it's when it's the water bill, one of the things that I would do is provide a copy of that rental lease agreement to the water company or the utility company, showing the utility service provider that a tenant is now occupying that rental property. There is no harm in going above and beyond. And so this is how you treat your business like a business. So thank you for that question that came in by way of text. All right, so let me go to the chat box and I asked a question. How often should a housing provider conduct housing inspections? So, Ms. Davis, I'm looking at your comment here. You said that the housing inspection should be conducted every 3 months. I like that. Sade, you said every 6 months. I like that as well. But for me, 3 months should be the minimum. I would suggest, and it should be in your rental lease agreement. Please make sure that for your new rental leases, right, that you put it in there however often you're going to do it, whether it's once a year, whether it's every 6 months, whether it's every 3 months. I have a client or two that they say, well, Karissa, you know what? I'm going to do a housing inspection every month. And if that's your business policy, that's your business. Just make sure that it's in writing. Make sure that the tenant understands in advance. There's nothing worse than a tenant renting a property and then all of a sudden they feel harassed by the landlord because now all of a sudden the landlord out the blue just want to do all of these housing inspections. I get it. But here's what I say to tenants who feel that way. Sometimes landlords and owners, they want to make sure that repairs are completed. Okay. And so if there are any questions or any concerns, tenants, you should want a landlord who cares enough to conduct a housing inspection, right? Because they want to make sure that everything in that rental property is the way that it's supposed to be. There is nothing worse than having a landlord as a tenant, whereas they don't come out to do inspections, they don't make repairs, and stuff just happens. All right. So, this is why we are having this conversation today. All right. So, I'm going to go to a couple of pictures because I want you to see why housing inspections are important. So, let me pull up my first picture for today. I'm going to share a few pictures with you. So, my first picture for today, and we are talking about the truth about housing inspections. All right. So, can you see that picture? So, what's wrong in this picture? For all of you who are landlords, all of you who are tenants, all of my viewers today, what is wrong in this picture? Please put it in the chat box. All right. So, let's discuss this. What was wrong in that picture? Now, there were a few things going on in that picture, but I want to see if you were able to pick up on it. So let me go to my comment section. Sade, you said it had no protection. Absolutely. So let me go back to the picture. I'm gonna pull it back up on the screen because it's important. I want people to understand that when it comes to rental property, there are some do's and there are some don'ts. And clearly, this is a don't. Please don't do this. If you are a housing provider, when you are conducting housing inspections, please make sure that there is a cover on electrical outlets. This is a hazard. Okay. This is a hazard. In rental property, tenants could could hurt themselves over something like that. So great observation, Sade. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Hey, Joe. Happy Monday. Happy Monday, big brother. Okay, so let me go to my next picture for today because I want people to understand it. This is on a cover picture. All right. So we are talking about the truth about housing inspections. What's going on in this picture? This is a tenant's bedroom. All right. This is actually a place where somebody lives. You see what's going on in this picture? So when you are conducting housing inspections and you see situations like this, please, as a housing professional, address what you see, because when you don't, number one, you are encouraging the behavior, because sometimes tenants, again, remember I said people do things for two reasons: because either they don't know or because they don't care. And sometimes people don't know that a hole in the wall is not normal, right? And so when landlords are not conducting housing inspections, they don't realize these type of situations. And so that's why it's going to be important to conduct housing inspections. All right. And I get it. Sometimes tenants are not receptive. Sometimes tenants are embarrassed because of things that are going on. But I promise you that if you're a tenant, and let's just say you have something going on, you haven't cleaned up, or maybe you had guests that came over, or you have kids that are in the in the rental property plan, and somebody mysteriously put a hole in the wall. It's always best to be truthful and honest. Contact the landlord to say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, we had a situation. There's a hole in the wall. Here's why you want to do that, because when there are holes in the wall, just depending on the type of rental property it is, things can come in through holes. I've seen rats come through holes, and when you have those type of situations going on, sometimes it's hard to correct it. So you just want to be you want to be on top of these type of matters. All right, so let me go to my next picture. That's right, Sade, you got it. It was a hole in the drywall. Let me pull up another picture because I can't make this stuff up. Here's my next picture. This is somebody's kitchen. This is a rental property, okay? And this tenant has been in this rental property for a number of years. Can you see what's going on in this picture? The landlord in this property never did repairs. I'm sorry, they never did inspections. They never conducted a housing inspection. So do you see the cabinet? You see the cabinet door? You see the cabinet door that's missing. Well, if you look under the exhaust fan right above the stove, there is a hole in the wall. Do you see that right above the stove? There's a hole in the wall. And if this housing provider would have conducted inspections, they would have known before the door to the cabinet actually fell completely off. They might have noticed that maybe that the cabinet door was loose or was coming off the hinge. Well, because that owner never conducted a housing inspection, they had no way of knowing that the door needed to be repaired. And so now the door has to be replaced. And so obviously, had this owner completed a housing inspection at any point in time, whether it was once a year, once every 2 years, once every 3, 4, or 5 years, they may have been able to detect not only was the cabinet door missing, but there was a hole in the wall, right? That's a no no. All right, so let me pull up another picture because we're talking about the importance of and the truth about housing inspections. Absolutely. The door was missing and a hole in the wall behind the stove. Awesome. All right, so let me pull up another picture. Sade, you are on it. Okay. So this is the same rental property, same picture that I showed, but this is what the stove looks like. Okay. Now, what's going on the wall to the left of the stove? Can you see that? There's something happening. That's actually a wall. So we see the stove, we see what's going on the stove, but what's happening? What's happening on that wall? There's something going on with that wall. All right. Sade, you said it's not clean and a grease fire can happen. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sade, you get it. You should listen. You should be teaching this for me. You should be teaching this with me. As a matter of fact, Sade, I'm gonna have you on next Monday. We're gonna do this together. All right. And so in that picture that I showed, there was a lot of grease. There was a grease buildup, not just on the stove, but actually on the wall. Listen, there was a rental property that I managed. And I think in that property, it was close to, I think, 370 something rental homes. So it was a mixture of apartments, townhomes, things of that nature. And so when I conducted the housing inspection, I came in and shortly after I came in, the tenant's kitchen caught on fire. And it caught on fire because of grease, excessive grease buildup on the stove, excessive grease buildup on the wall. And that whole apartment building could have gone up in smoke because of one tenant's grease fire. Uh, did that landlord do inspections? I don't know. Did the tenant know to wipe the stove down after they cook? How to get grease off the stove, right? And so that's why I usually make it a point to educate my tenants. So if I'm doing a housing inspection, and for instance, if I see grease buildup, um, I don't harass my tenants. I'll just educate them. I'll tell them, I say, hey, listen, you see this grease on the stove or on the wall or the backsplash, just go ahead and wipe it down. But I also like to recommend that if they use a lemon scented um, dish detergent, maybe like Ajax, Joy, whatever. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to, they don't have to use harsh or strong chemicals. They can use dish detergent. I'll tell them, listen, put it on there, that lemon scent dish detergent. Let it sit for a little while because the lemon act as a degreaser and it makes it a lot easier to get that grease up because as we saw, there was a lot of grease that had built up. All right. And grease fires can cause a major issue in rental property. All right. So let me show you a few more pictures. And I'm not going to hold much of your time, but I want you to see this. All right. This is a floor. Do you see what's going on the floor here? Now, this rental property had never been inspected by the owner. You see this floor? The floor didn't look like that when a tenant moved in. All right. Here's another picture. This is the floor. This is what the floor looked like when the tenant moved out. You see the floor? That floor didn't look like that when the tenant moved in, but it did look like that when the tenant moved out. All right. And again, in this rental property, the tenant lived there. The owner never inspected the property. And obviously, when that tenant moved out, there was a lot of damage that cost thousands of dollars. So the truth about housing inspections is this. When you are conducting housing inspections, you get to identify what the issues are so that you can make repairs. Hello, Barbara Duggar. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Absolutely nasty. So let me bring up another picture because I want you to see um, the truth about housing inspections. This is a bathroom floor. Please take a look at that floor. What's going on here? Can somebody tell me what's going on here? Put it in the chat box when you see. You see it? All right, let me come to your comments in the chat box. All right, let's go to the comment sections here. Absolutely. Sade, you said it's unleveled and cracked. Dirty, of course. Major dirt, right? Um, you said two different colors, Vic. Absolutely. Let me bring that picture back up. And so this is the result of this owner never conducting repairs. So it's cracked, it's different colors. The base of the tub, you see the dirt around the base of the tub. All right. Had this owner conducted housing inspections, they would have been able to identify the issues to help this tenant understand how to clean or maybe how to make repairs, because that crack in the floor didn't happen by itself. All right. These are the type of things that happens when repairs are not completed. Barbara, I like that you said moisture underneath. Absolutely. And maybe if the owner would have been able to detect that, they could have made the repairs and saved themselves thousands of dollars. All right, Ms. Davis, you said cracked towel and dirt, also grout around the tub needs to be replaced. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sade, you said cracking can be a sign of foundation. Well, that is a good point. That's an apartment, however. Vic, you're asking, is that mold? It could be, but usually in the bathroom, when there's moisture, when there's dirt, or when housekeeping is an issue, it's not like it's not mold that will cause health issues. Like if a tenant cleans, then usually that problem will go away. And sometimes tenants, they'll use bleach or something to get that up, and that won't be an issue. So let me go to my last couple of pictures for the evening. So this is the same rental property, okay? This is the tub. You see the tub. Now, this tub did not get this way overnight. That didn't happen overnight. The tub did not get that way overnight. So, this is why housing inspections are so important. And the truth about housing inspections, for those of you who are renters, right? Understand that landlords should be conducting housing inspections to know the condition of the property so that they can make repairs. But let me pull up another picture. I want you to take a look at this picture of the cover. So I showed this picture because I want you to see, I want you to understand the truth about housing inspections and why it's important. And this is how somebody is currently living. Take a look at this. So this is what happens. And we're talking about the truth about housing inspections. So this is why I do what I do. I share information because sharing is caring. And I know that sometimes people don't really understand the truth about housing inspections and what they're for. Housing inspections are not to harass tenants, but it should be in place to make sure that rental property is decent, safe, and sanitary. If you see something, say something. If you're a tenant and you have some issues going on, please, you can conduct a housing inspection yourself. If you're not comfortable, and I understand that we're still in COVID and a lot of people are not comfortable with people coming into the rental property. I'm not here to give you any legal advice. I'm not an attorney, right? I'm a landlord and tenant expert, but I'm not an attorney. So I'm not giving you legal advice, but I am saying that when you are renting property, if you're not comfortable with your landlord coming in, at least allow them to conduct the inspection virtually so that they can see the things that are needed. They need to see the repairs or the replacements that they must make. And then also, it protects you as a tenant while you're living in that property. Okay. And so, if you're a housing professional, if you're new in the rental property space, and maybe you're just not comfortable conducting housing inspections, or maybe you're not comfortable going into somebody's home, I get it, but it's still a business. You're still not excused from doing what you should be doing. And again, it should be in writing. It should be clear. It should be concise. It should be precise. The tenant should understand when you're coming to conduct the inspection, and you should give the tenant proper notice. Conducting the inspection should be done during normal business hours. So housing inspections, unless it's an emergency, should not be conducted like 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, right? So follow the terms of your rental lease agreement, understand your role and responsibility, whether you're the tenant or the landlord. All right. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, because that's the truth about housing inspections. Barbara, you said no, you're scared. Shada, you said the landlord should want to protect their investment. Absolutely. But I promise you might be surprised to know how many landlords end up in court sued by their tenant because they are not making repairs. And so, unfortunately, all business owners are not created equal. Sometimes you might come across a slum landlord, which I absolutely cannot stand. I was going to say hate, and I know that hate is a strong word, but because I am very thorough as a housing professional, I'm a housing educator. I enjoy making a difference. I enjoy providing rental property that's decent, safe, and sanitary. I enjoy working with clients who own rental property to help them to build a portfolio that they could be proud of. But I hate more than anything owners who will not put money into making repairs. They don't care about the tenants. They only care about collecting rent. But I'm so excited that most of my viewers are not those type of landlords. So obviously something that you're doing is working. Something that I'm doing is working. I'm excited that you're here. Please make sure that you join me each and every Monday right here, whether you're on Facebook, you're watching by way of YouTube, or LinkedIn. We are a rental community, and we can do it better when we do it together. All right. So thank you for tuning in. My time is up. I thank you for yours. I hope that you will join me next week. Bye for now.